What if it was an indestructible, immortal, incorruptible product? Well, when you buy a Bitcoin, you're buying 121 millionth of all the money on the network, or all the money in the world that's ever going to be on that network. Okay, so would you want to own 121 millionth of all the money in the world in 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years? The product's not obsolescing. It's 121 millionth of everything. You see, the iPhone will obsolesce. One day you'll be using Apple Vision, or maybe they'll put a telepathic implant in your brain and you won't need phones and you won't need goggles. And maybe you won't need televisions. Those things can obsolesce, but will you want 121 millionth of all the energy in the human race? Probably.
Think you've got the Bitcoin lowdown? Wait till you hear from this guy. Michael Saylor, wielding a staggering $4 billion in Bitcoin, breaks down the roadmap to that golden million mark. Let's get this straight. Bitcoin, it's like that popular kid in school everyone's talking about. And Michael Saylor, with a whopping $4 billion worth of Bitcoin tucked under his company's belt, spills the beans on why this cryptocurrency is on a rocket ship to, wait for it, $1 million. But hold on, armchair skeptics and sideline sages, Michael's got a dose of reality and a heap of evidence to dismantle every "but Bitcoin crashed" argument you've got in your arsenal. Remember that heart-stopping moment when Bitcoin plummeted to almost $15,000? Yeah, we all do. Fast forward a few cold, anxiety-filled months, and boom. Bitcoin's back, now strutting around at $30,000. Magic? Nope, Michael's here to school us on the why. By the way, as much as we love diving into the deep end of finance and crypto drama, here's our lighthearted disclaimer. This isn't financial advice, it's pure infotainment. So welcome aboard to the Token Effect. If you're here for the financial roller coasters, expert chats, and spicy news, don't forget to hit subscribe.
What if I could buy a product that was never going to obsolesce, that's good for 1,000,000 years? What if there was no management team and they work for free, right? What if the product is run by computer programs that don't charge a fee? What if there's no labor? What if it's a digital product, so there is no chance to block it via a trade war or destroy it via real war? What if it was an indestructible, immortal, incorruptible product? Well, when you buy a Bitcoin, you're buying 121 millionth of all the money on the network, or all the money in the world that's ever going to be on that network. Okay, so would you want to own 121 millionth of all the money in the world in 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years? The product's not obsolescing. It's 121 millionth of everything. You see, the iPhone will obsolesce. One day you'll be using Apple Vision, or maybe they'll put a telepathic implant in your brain and you won't need phones and you won't need goggles, and maybe you won't need televisions. Those things can obsolesce, but will you want 121 millionth of all the energy in the human race? Probably. Like, the whole point of pure energy, right? Einstein said energy can neither be destroyed nor created. You can just transform it, right? It's a pure idea, and it's an idea that doesn't have competition because of the Immaculate Conception. There's one Bitcoin, there's one network that was created by a nameless, anonymous figure, Satoshi, and Satoshi gifted 1 million coins to the universe, never ran an ICO, never kept anything from a pre-mine, and the network now is just owned by the people. So how do you actually compete with that? It's hard to see how you compete with a pure thing like that. So it's a digital monopoly with no labor risk, no war risk, no product risk, no execution risk. Now, there is execution risk that takes place. So you have to set up Bitcoin miners. And if you set up a Bitcoin miner in China and they shut down Bitcoin mining, the miners lose money, but you don't lose money as the holder, right? So it's like the perfect monetary franchise. All of the work to improve Bitcoin is done by the miners, by the Bitcoin device builders, by the Bitcoin banks, right? BlockFi and Celsius can fail, but if you're holding Bitcoin in cold storage, you don't fail, right? The hardware company can fail, but you don't fail. And so if you study business, let's take McDonald's. McDonald's is a great business, but But the reason they're a great business is so they don't really take that much risk. All the franchises take the risk. And so it's possible for every restaurant to lose money in the McDonald's chain, and the McDonald's Corporation still makes money.
Picture this. The mighty US dollar, once the poster child of stability, getting a reality check. Inflation rates skyrocketing, value dropping faster than my phone's battery percentage. But let's rewind to 2008. The real estate drama, properties losing value, and even the ever-reliable S&P 500 facing a jaw-dropping 57% slump. And amidst all this, our friends at the Feds, they're in a money-printing frenzy, but here comes Bitcoin, the shining armor-clad hero, with its anti-printing powers. And with the Bitcoin halving event around the corner, expect some supply scarcity magic. Want to see Michael debunking Bitcoin fears like a boss? Roll the clip.
Bitcoin is a digital commodity. It works. You can send value between two parties without a trusted intermediary. It's an innovation. But it's too good to be true, and the government's going to ban it. Right? Lots of people said that about 2 years ago. I mean, Ray Dalio said that, Jamie Dimon said that, Larry Fink kind of implied that, It used to be that there were a lot of very powerful, successful, either politicians or powerful, successful money managers that were skeptics. And in the last 24 months, those skeptics have been largely silenced. When the head of the CFTC says Bitcoin's a digital commodity and we're going to support it, and when the head of the SEC says Bitcoin is a digital commodity, we're going to support it, and when the head of the Central Bank of Europe and the Central Bank of the United States say, yeah, it's a digital asset, we recognize it, we're not going to block it, we're not moving against it. When the government says, well, we need to embrace it, when you have 4 political candidates, 4. Do you know in the history of the United States, I don't think there's ever been an example where you had 4 political candidates running for president endorsing a new asset.
Fast forward to now. Institutions are whispering sweet nothings to Bitcoin, and some countries, looking at you, El Salvador, are even making it rain Bitcoin as legal tender. Governments globally, they're trying to craft their own Bitcoin-esque digital darlings. With adoption skyrocketing, new chart highs might be just a sip of coffee away.
A piece of property on the Gold Coast of Florida for 100 years. It went from $100,000 to $50 million. Good, but the property taxes on it probably offset the capital gain from it if it was residential. So the only way you could have actually made money owning property is if you own commercial real estate and you generated a rent on it in excess of the taxes and the insurance and the depreciation and the maintenance. It's not easy to do that everywhere in the world. So Bitcoin represents property rights, or the right to purchase perfect property that is maintainable, right? It's low cost to maintain. It's indestructible. The rain doesn't melt it. Tornadoes don't destroy it. And it's scalable. You can buy it with your weekly paycheck. And if it's liquid, you can sell it. Try selling it 1/100th of a building. Not so easy. You want to mortgage the building? Well, you can. A building in Kansas City, you could mortgage to a bank that deals in Kansas City real estate. But if you're Turkish and you have a building in Istanbul, there's only just a small number of banks in the world that will give you a mortgage on that. The mortgage will be in lira. The lira is losing 30 to 40% of its value a year. You got a problem. So Bitcoin represents global digital property. You can take it anywhere on Earth. You can hold it for 100 years. In theory, you can hold it for 1,000 years. So you can take a very long view. And how many banks will want your Bitcoin? You see what's going on right now is there's a French bank that wants to custody Bitcoin. There's a German bank that wants to custody Bitcoin. There's a Singapore bank that wants to custody Bitcoin. The banks in the UAE are getting into the business. The banks in Spain are getting into the business. The banks in the US are getting into the business. Right? And on the other hand, none of those banks want to give you a mortgage on your house in Arkansas. Only a local bank in Arkansas is going to get into that, right? So Bitcoin represents pure a pure economic asset. It doesn't have the liabilities that come with securities and other forms of property and other commodities. And it's simple. And that's why it appeals to the middle class. I don't have a better solution for you if you're a working person on a salary and you want to take control of your own economic destiny.
And that's it. High-five that like button and ring that subscribe bell. You won't want to miss the next crypto twist.